This poor little Bandai Wonderswan has been abandoned in the rivers of fate. Marked up as junk, I bought it for $17 on a Japanese auction site. I don't know what this game is, but it was an additional $3. The real kicker is that together they work. But there's a problem with this screen. It has a burned polarizer. But it's an issue we're going to fix right now.
Mark fixes stuff. This video is sponsored by PCBWay. You can get an instant quote on a variety of services, or browse a library of talented makers' designs, add them to your cart, and have them delivered directly to your door.
So let me show you the problem. It's almost impossible to see what's on the screen, and a heads up here, it's usually a lot clearer through the camera. I can barely see this in real life. I can just about see it in full sunlight at this kind of angle. But what can we do? Let's see what the solution is. So the polarizer is a film over the top of the screen, and what's happened is over time this has worn out and become, as they say, burned. You can just about see the bronzing effect around the corner of the screen, and this is where the polarizer is no longer, well, polarizing. Time to grab our tools, fixers. This handheld is held together by 6 Torx T7 screws. And I'm going to reach for my trusty Kaiweets ES20 electric screwdriver set. It's cheap and cheerful, it works well, and it's got lots of exotic bits. And you know I love an exotic bit. Affiliate link below! The actual screwdriver handle itself is charged by USB-C, and it's got 2 modes, low torque and higher torque. Perfect for screwing into 20-year-old or 30-year-old plastic. Let's pop this out of the way and get on with the job at hand. So, the 6 screws are all easily found on the back. The Bandai Wonderswan is marked up as 1998, and I think it was meant to be a direct competitor to the Game Boy. We didn't see many of these in the UK, but I think they were pretty popular in Japan because they're quite common on the auction sites. The games library is pretty Japanese based, so there's only a few titles you can play without understanding Japanese. That being said, it's a really interesting system to explore. If anybody knows any great Bandai Wonderswan titles, please let me know in the comment section below. With all the screws out, we remove the cartridge, and then we need to remove the battery pack. I really like the design of this with the single AA battery actually encapsulated in its own little holder. That's pretty smart. The back just comes off with a couple of little plastic clips. I think this is a pretty clean model, and for $17 I can't really argue. There's a couple of electrolytic capacitors here. I've not changed these. You may need to, but I don't know. I will remove this plastic switch though, because I'm bound to lose it otherwise. There's a single ribbon cable, and that connects to the LCD itself. Releasing the collar on the 0 insertion force socket, it's easy to remove the cable and move it to one side. And with the ribbon removed, it's simply a case of removing the mainboard from the front of the shell. Be careful the buttons don't fall off and roll underneath your desk like this one just did. Okay, there's a bit of rust on this speaker. I could try and clean it up, but I can get a replacement for about £3, so I think we'll do that. These 4 pads really handily hold the screen in place, an advantage that we'll really come to appreciate later. Now the way to this console's heart is removing the buttons and finding this aperture that we can use our spudger on. We're going to be prying the screen from the adhesive on the front of the shell, but we'll go easy because it is glass after all. By easing it up, eventually you'll be able to remove the screen from the shell. Lovely. Now with that removed, we can really see some of the damage that old Father Time has done to this Wonderswan. We can even see that some of the adhesive for the screen has started to delaminate around the corners. Okay, that looks pretty clean and it's very sticky, so let's put that to one side. Looking at the screen itself, we need to take the polarizing film off the top. This is adhered on, so we're going to need to cut it off. And for that, we'll use El Trusty Scalpel. Now don't worry too much, because as long as you're careful and you keep the blade flat, it's very difficult to score the glass screen underneath. We need to get it started and then we're going to, well, pull it off. It's going to be satisfying to watch me pull this off, so prepare yourselves, YouTube. After a while I get a decent amount and I think I can get my fingers on it. Time to give it a tug. It's really well stuck down, so I use my other fingers to make sure that the item is held flatly on the mat, whilst I gently but firmly remove the polarizing screen. This goo that you see coming off is actually adhesive. It's kind of in the form of a sheet. You can see most of the sheet here. And of course, once we've got the sheet off, we're going to have to deal with all this glue. Satisfying. And if you're wondering what a polarizer does, well, here's a good example. Even though it's worn and faded, this one still has a bit of its 1998 mojo left in the tank. Amazing stuff, really. This glue has left us in a sticky situation, but we can remove it. Now you can try scraping it off, but that's not going to work because it's really dense. Instead, we're going to use a few drops of isopropyl alcohol on top of the LCD. It immediately starts to dissolve the glue. Please excuse my finger here, but I like to feel where all the lumps and bumps of the glue are. Don't try this at home, kids. With our plastic blade, we can now easily start to move the top layer of the glue, but be under no illusions, this will take a couple of goes. I hope you're enjoying this video. If you are enjoying this video, then please consider becoming a patron at www.patreon.com/MarkFixesStuff. You'll get ad-free early access to these videos, and you'll also get an insight into what happens at Mark Fixes Stuff through my exclusive patron blogs. Now that's coming up really nicely, but we will need a second attempt. Even with the second attempt, we can see loads of glue still coming off. But that clean glass underneath is starting to make an appearance. Terry and Dave have come along to tell me that I've missed a bit. How about now, guys? Okay, how about now? Thanks for your help, boys. And with that, Terry and Dave's assistance has given us a really clean LCD screen. Now we need some polarizing film. We'll cut it to the right size and install it now. This is 90-degree polarizing film which I bought from Amazon. Affiliate link below. It's self-adhesive on the back, which is handy for our purposes. Just bear in mind there are a couple of orientations you can use, and they'll look different in each one. So that's wrong. But that's right. Because this is sticky on one side only, it's impossible to get it back to front. but be aware that only one way will look like this. You're in yellow. So bearing in mind the orientation of the screen, now we need to cut our film to fit our Wonderswan. And I want to make sure it's really precise, so I'm going to use a new tool. No, not my digital calipers, although I am using them to make sure that I get the right size for the shell. Once I have the sizes of the aperture of the shell, I'm going to put them into a new thing called a cricket. Now the cricket is really it's a vinyl cutter, sticker cutter, cork cutter, card cutter, and it's kind of aimed at the craft market. But for me it's perfect for things like labels for cartridges or cutting out this. With the dimensions that we've measured, I'm going to plug them into the software and then just pop it into the cutting machine. The Cricut is also popular for people who do things like face painting stencils, so I've set this on the Mylar setting and to double cut. And with that done, we just press the button to remove it from the cutter, and we can peel off the remaining film, leaving exactly what we need for our console. With our new UV filter correctly sized, it's time to peel off the backing to reveal the sticky side, and then place it on the screen, mindful of any dust of course. Then, much like a mobile phone screen protector, we're going to need to make sure that there's no bubbles underneath the bottom layer. Now there is still a top protective layer on this, so don't go too crazy, but just make sure it goes all the way to the edges. Once we're happy with how it's stuck on, we can remove the top protector. And if I do say so myself, that looks pretty damn good. Let's get this into our console and see how well it works. Considering this was manufactured in 1998, it's incredible how much tack this adhesive still has. Using 2 fingers, we make sure the job is done properly, using our digits to get into all the nooks and crannies. That looks really good. I can't wait to see if it actually works. So let's pop the buttons back into the shell. Now these are the buttons which, off camera, I managed to launch across the room and spent a good 20 minutes on my knees. There's no need for comments like that, YouTube. Popping our rubbers into place means we're ready for action. I just want to have a quick look at the speaker on this board. It's really in a pretty poor condition. In fact, even the rubber around it has started to deteriorate. I really do think this is a good candidate for a replacement. As you can see, this rust is pretty bad, and for such a cheap part, it's probably not worth the effort. For now, we'll reassemble it as it is, because I really want to see if our new Polarizer has done the business. The main board on the Wonderswan is a pretty loose fit inside the shell. There are a couple of locating pins, but the whole thing is really held together when you put the back on. Making sure that our LCD connector is firmly in place in that 0 insertion force socket, then we'll be ready to replace that power button, something I'm often forgetting to do. The back shell fits really nicely. I actually love this colour. Nothing screams late 90s like transparent coloured plastics. And of course we'll need to check that the buttons are all functioning as they should, and then we'll be ready to screw the console back together. Sympathetically, I might add, because I'm backing off the screw to make sure that it drops into the thread before pressing the button to use our electric screwdriver in low torque mode so we don't strip the plastic. This electric screwdriver has saved my wrists from a lot of work, giving me the strength to pursue some other hobbies. And with that, the console is back together. We just need to slip the battery back into its slot, and insert our game cartridge. And with all those things in place, let's give it a whirl. Power on. And already that is an amazing difference. On camera there's a bit of screen flicker, but you don't see that with the naked eye. And I'd like to apologise for the dust on the outside of the console. I really should have blasted that off first. But this is a real success. Big thanks to our sponsors, PCBWay. I can't believe you put up with this nonsense. And big thanks to my patrons appearing on the screen right now. Patrons are really the lifeblood of this channel, and without them I wouldn't be able to do what I do. So thank you so much. Don't forget, patrons get ad-free early access to all my videos, and they also get to see my patron vlog, where you can see behind the scenes at Mark Fix's stuff. Or if you don't want to, well, don't watch. An absolutely incredible bunch of people. Genuinely thanks. You make my videos happen, so thank you all. And why don't you watch some of these other videos? They're Gummy Bear approved. See you on the other side.